Hi everyone, thank you for watching. For this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to get this Sally makeup look for Halloween. If you like this video, please make sure to like and hit subscribe. So to start out with this makeup look, I'm just going to be applying concealer under my eyes and on any breakouts. I'm skipping foundation because we're going to be using a face paint all over the face, neck, and body. So using a beauty blender, I'm just blending this out. One thing to note, applying the body paint part of this process is pretty time consuming. So if you want to just watch the first part and skip to eyes and stitches, the body paint part of this video will go on until 17 minutes and 50 seconds. So I just wanted to let you guys know that in case you wanted to jump ahead. But I'm going to start the body paint process first because this is going to be the foundation of the look. So in the movie, I referenced back to it, she has a kind of bluish gray cast to her skin. So because I have a slight tan, I need to lighten my skin a bit using a white cream face paint and a beauty blender. If you have skin that's lighter than mine, I'm kind of like a light medium, you might be able to skip this step and go directly in with light blue paint. But I found for me, when I did that, my skin tone was still peeking through. So by adding this white face paint, it really helped counteract my skin tone and make that blue, light blue face paint pop. So I'm going to be swirling into this Mayron light blue paradise paint for the face. It is water activated, so you want to make sure your beauty blender is wet. I kind of squeeze out any extra water. And what I learned from watching other people is in order to get the most color payoff, you really need to dig your sponge into a lot of face paint, like more than you think you would need. And I found this really helpful as far as getting a pigmented, non-streaky base. So as you can see here, to get a really even base, I prefer to work in small sections because it's easier for me to control. I find that when I start to take too big of sections, like what happened here in the forehead, the sponge seems to lift too much product. So any streaking you see here, I'm going to go back in and fix with my finger, let it dry down, and it will all come together. But I do notice that the smaller sections you work, the better it turns out. So now we need to add another layer. If you kind of want just like a light cast, you could, I guess, just do one layer. But for me, after testing it out against the camera and flash, and I'm actually planning on wearing it tonight for Halloween, I found that I personally needed another layer. So here you can see I've let it dry down and I'm just going over with the same process of really packing on that product from that makeup compact and just pressing it into my skin in small sections. One thing I will say is I wish I would have had a second pot of this makeup. So it is worth getting maybe one or two if you plan on doing quite a bit of face paint. I did, because of how much product I needed to make this pigmented, I actually did go through a lot more of this than I thought I would. So that's one tip that I suggest, that if you plan on doing something like this pot is I think like $11 on Amazon, so I think it would have been worth getting the second one. But I'll make it work. I had just enough for this look. So now that most of this is on, I'm just going to finish off by blending this color into the nose, and I'm just trying to work on blending out any of those like kind of patches. So I'm just taking my time because I do really want the base of this makeup to be as even as I can. It would be like having a splotchy foundation, even though a lot of this will end up being covered up by some shadows when I contour later. I just want to make sure I'm doing the best I can to put an even application. I'm also taking some of this product and just working it over the brow, the eyelid, and the under eye area, just to kind of blend stuff together. Now that the blue part of the face is painted, I want to add a little highlight back into the areas that I would normally kind of highlight with concealer. So I just took a little bit of white face paint and just re-went over um, the eyelid and the under eye area, just to kind of make sure that this is nice and bright. Okay, so now that the face is done, we do have to move on to the neck. And like I mentioned before, if you got the gist of this, you can skip on to 17 minutes and 50 seconds to see how I apply the Sally like makeup, the eyeshadow, the contour. Um, but if you are interested in seeing how I paint the body, please continue watching. So I'm just following the same steps. I had brought a little bit of the white paint to the upper half of my neck. So I'm just finishing that area with some of the light blue paint. And after that, we'll be working to the lower part of the neck and the chest. So at this point, um, I need to work on the bottom half of my neck and the full chest area. I'm going to be going from both spaghetti straps to the V of my top. I'm covering this whole area. So we're just going to take that white face paint and follow the same process that we did with the face. So just make sure that you just dip into your cream paint and you just press on all the areas. One tip I can suggest is I like to cover more area than is what's needed. I'm wearing a short sleeve V-neck dress, and I technically don't have to go all the way to the spaghetti straps, but I just want to be mindful that sometimes the dress moves or you might be photographed from an angle, and I want to avoid any lines of demarcation that show where the blue paint and my skin tone, starts and finishes. So that would just be my one recommendation. It's just to take it a little bit further than you normally would. The extra work will pay off in the long run. So I'm just going to finish up this neck area, make sure I'm blending out any weird patches, and then we'll move on to painting this all blue. Alright, so that base is done. So now we are going to paint the chest blue. It'll be the same process as the face. It's super simple. All you really need is some time. That's probably the one thing I can say is because we're layering, it is a bit time consuming. So this isn't like the quickest thing, but it's not hard either. It's just taking the time to blend and do the layering that you need. So I'm just gonna be covering all of these areas. And like I mentioned before, if you don't need to see the full process, please feel free to jump to 17 minutes and 50 seconds to see how I start the eye makeup and the rest of the process. Also, note that I'm going to be using a red wig for this foundation, or for this look. So I literally just threw my hair up in any old ponytail. So it's definitely not styled at this point. So it is a bit messy, so just disregard that. This look does require a wig cap and stuff, so I'll do that off camera later. Okay, so now we are going to move along with this makeup look into the eyeshadow. So I have this eyeshadow palette that I picked up at Walgreens. It has like an ice blue, a medium blue, a navy, and some white. So I'm taking the lid color, which is just like a standard blue color, and I'm using like a fluffy brush from Sigma, and I just apply that over my eyebrows. Then I have this Bobbi Brown eyeliner pen brush that I'm dipping in with the same color and just making sure to fill in between like the little brow hairs. I'm just kind of blending this all out so it looks even. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is take that same blue color and I'm just working it above my crease. I want to make sure that when I'm looking straight ahead, I see that blue shadow. So yeah, I'm just working on the outer part of the eye above the crease. Next, also working with that same lid color, I am using that Bobbi Brown flatliner pencil and working it under the eyelid or under the waterline area. I'm taking a little bit more of that same lid color and I'm just deepening the color. Usually, the more that you layer, the deeper the color will get. So I'm just trying to transition it. Now, using a brush, I'm grabbing into what their crease color is, which is closer to like a medium navy. So that is just going to be on the very outer corner, and I am still keeping that above my crease. I'm just trying to keep it lower than the first color I applied. I don't want to take that out farther. I'm kind of, restricting how far I'm blending that. And then I'm just sweeping a little bit. I didn't get any extra product. Sweeping that just a little bit under the eye. And then to kind of blend everything together, I took a little bit of that darker crease shade and I'm just working that on the outer tail of my brow. Now I want to contour my nose. So going into that lid shade that we used, I am going to work that on the sides of my nose and the tip of the nose, pretty much anywhere that I guess you would normally contour your regular nose. Now to really define the contour, I'm going in with the darker shade, the navy color, and being very careful. I'm pinching my brush and just applying it lightly to the upper bridge of my nose, just pretty specific areas just to really intensify it. Now, using my makeup brush, I believe I got as a gift from Hot Topic. It was literally a Sally makeup brush set. It was so cute. It has little stitches and everything. But I'm using that to dip into the white part of the eyeshadow palette to highlight the nose, and then a little bit over the icy blue color because that one has some sparkle to it. So we're just creating a nice nose highlight, and you can use any brush for this as long as it's not too thick that it would go over the contouring lines. Now taking those same colors, I'm just going to keep that lid space very light. So we're just going to set the lid that's already white with face cream with those colors. Okay, so before all I did was just kind of blend a little bit, but I did take a little bit more of that darker color and layered that on top, and I'm just intensifying under the eye again. I decided to take that navy and go all the way under the eye with it. So at this point, this is going to be where, like, that's like a good base of your eyeshadow. So I want to go ahead and move on to setting the face. I have a kind of a vanilla white eyeshadow from a palette that's matte. So I literally just dipped into that, and I am setting just the areas that you would highlight your face, which is under the eye, you know, above your cupid's bow, on the chin, maybe the forehead. And then for the rest of the face, if you have any sort of a translucent powder, you can go ahead and use that. The ice blue color from this eyeshadow works really great as a base too for powdering. But before doing that, I want to start my contour. This is a double-sided Kat Von D. I think it's like a synthetic contour brush, so one side is flat and the other side is pointed. So using the angled flat side, I'm going back in with the lid color from that shadow palette as my contour, kind of my more of my bronzer shade or blush shade, because the navy is actually going to be my true contour shade, but I'm kind of using those two colors layered. But if you think of where you apply your blush and bronzer, which is like right around my cheek area, is where I'm applying that. And then I'm going to take it across the forehead. And when I work with this, I'm using flat pressed motions, and then once it's on, I'm just kind of slightly buffing out any of the edges. So just to not disturb the face paint underneath, I'm using pressing motions and then lightly buffing. Okay, so now we need to contour the neck area. So I'm still using that lid color, and I'm just going pretty heavy-handed in this area because I do want to have a pretty slimmed effect under the jaw. So I'm just taking that all over that area, and then after we'll intensify it even further with the navy shadow. Alright, so now we are going to intensify the contour. Using the navy shadow, we're just going to repeat. I'm going to flip the brush over to the pointed side, and I'm kind of pressing it together because I don't want this dark color to go all over the place. But I'm keeping that. I like to think about it when I wear my sunglasses is, you know, where does that hit? And it's like kind of right above the ear and it comes down. So I'm kind of applying it in that area for my face shape because I want it to have a lifted effect. And then I'm going to also define that jaw area a little bit more intensely. I do skip my forehead because I find that the other color is sufficient for me, but if you wanted to intensify your forehead further, you could do that too, but I'm just doing under the cheeks and the jawline. So now I want to highlight the face. So I find that that light blue, like kind of icy color at the top, it's like a very pale blue, and it has a little bit of glitter in it, which is really pretty. It's not chunky, but it has a very like sheen, like a slight sheen to it, which I find really pretty for a highlight color. So I'm just taking that above the cheekbones, on the cupid's bow, any on the chin a bit, anywhere I would normally highlight. And I did kind of mix a little bit of that white color because it was almost kind of matching the skin too well, so I did need to lighten it a little bit. So I just kind of did a mix of the two colors and went over those areas to just lighten them a bit further. The next thing I'm doing is just using some of that light blue powder. You could use a translucent powder, but you want to just make sure you're taking that down the neck and in the chest area just to set it so you prolong that look of your makeup, especially if you're going to be wearing like a wig or clothing. You want to make sure that you're protecting that face paint that you put on the body so it's not transferring or coming off during the night. So that's pretty much all I'm doing here, is just setting it. If you're using a beauty blender and you decide to use this eyeshadow palette, because the eyeshadows are pretty small, just be careful to not cross mix the dark and light colors. So every now and then I get like a bit of that navy shadow, so I just kind of try to, when I remember, to try to dab it against my wrist before applying. So that's just one little tip if you happen to want to use this eyeshadow palette. Just be mindful that sometimes that dark navy color does get picked up if you're not careful. Now we are going to finish off the eyes. So I'm just doing a winged liner, nothing out of the ordinary. It's maybe a tiny bit bigger than what I would normally do. And I guess because I normally would just do a half wing, I am going to bring it into like across the whole lid, because this look does require some really intense fake lashes. And when you apply fake lashes, the bands, especially if they're very dramatic for Halloween, the band tends to be really thick. So the eyeliner is going to be really key to kind of hiding the look of the fake lash. So I am just going to do that. And now that I have the shape done, I go back in and just fill. So, oh, and if you're wondering, this is a brush tip eyeliner pen from L'Oreal. I've been using this for about a month or two, and I really love it. It's so easy to apply. I can't use a felt tip. It catches when I try to do the top part of the wing. I don't know why. I don't know if this happens to you guys or it's just my eyelid specifically, but felt creates like a jagged line for me. I can't get it smooth. But it could just be the preference though. So there it is. There is the completed eyeliner. Look. Now, because I want to make my eyes look bigger, you want to use a white eyeliner in the waterline to create a bigger effect. So this eyeliner is a retractable eyeliner from NYX. I love it. It's creamy, it's pigmented, it doesn't irritate my waterline. I think I got it on Amazon for $4. So I definitely recommend this if you're looking for a very pigmented white liner. Some of them don't do anything. So definitely recommend this if you like white eyeliner. Okay, so these are the lashes I plan to use today. They're so dramatic. They're from Kiss. I believe the style is called Icy. But I decided last minute before jumping into that, I think I want to start moving on to the stitches, which I'm going to be taking, like there's a stitch on the forehead, and then there's also a stitch that comes out of both sides of the mouth. I would recommend, I was about to start drawing the lines with the liner, but because we have a white eyeliner, we can take that and trace actually all the stitching that we want to do, because if you make any mistakes, it's so much easier to blend away a white eyeliner versus like a waterproof black liner. So I know it's going to be kind of hard to see, but you can kind of just see the base that I'm creating for the stitch. So you want to drag it above the eye, and then the stitch comes from the side of her mouth and it goes pretty far back, so almost to the line of the contour. I ended up switching for this part to a white face paint and a tiny brush. So feel free to use a white eyeliner, white face paint. It's the same idea. Now we need to do the area around the neck. I would position this somewhere in the realm of where you would put a choker. So you don't want to go too high up, because one time I did this look before and it weirdly, I don't know, kind of gave me like a weird double chin situation if you go too high. So keep it on the lower part of your neck, and then there is kind of like a V shape going across the collarbone and down the middle. So I am just tracing that out. So at this point, I am happy with the placement of the base of my stitches. So using the liquid liner pen that we used for our wing, we're going to pretty much just trace over the lines we made. Makes it super simple. It can kind of be hard doing these lines on your own, but my best suggestion is to keep a light hand. The lighter the hand you have, the more precise and fine the line is going to be. If you put too heavy of a hand, that line will get thicker. So just be mindful of trying to keep a light hand. Okay, so the face is done, and we're going to just trace over the neck and the collarbone areas. Okay, so one thing I want to share with you guys is, so you can see when I got to this collarbone area, the line just got the best of me. It was not coming out straight. That part got really thick. It's not the, huge deal because we are going to be drawing X's across all of this, so it's not going to be noticeable at the end, but, we do want to have crisp lines if we can. So I have this flat brush that came with this white face paint set, and I'm just dipping into it and using it almost like an eraser. This kind of technique is going to save your lines, especially later on when we go to do the X's. Sometimes they don't come out right. So yeah, if you mess up a little bit, it can be saved. All right, so now we have to finish off the stitching by doing X shapes and lines. There is a bit of a pattern to this. So I would say for each section, it's like an X, a line, an X, a line, and an X. So that's kind of the pattern I'm going for. And just to avoid any sort of mistakes, I am using that tiny, super tiny brush with that white face paint to trace everything out to make sure that everything is where I want it to be before we go back in. So I'm going to be following that same process we did for the base of the lines. The choker is also the same. We're going to do an X in the middle, a line on each side, and an X. And you'll have to adjust this depending on your neck size. If your neck is smaller or bigger, you just kind of keep going. And then in the middle of the chest, just following that same, we're doing a line, an X, and a line, and an X. Okay, so for the mouth area, still following that same pattern, I only need an X, a line, and an X, so it's a total of 3 on each side. So we're going to repeat that on the other side. For the forehead, we're just going to follow that same pattern along. An X, a line, an X, a line, an X. On the forehead, I did kind of make my lines less straight. They're slightly at an angle. And that completes the base. So now we can go in with our eyeliner and finalize all of this. So have some patience because this is kind of a process. However, I'm just going to be going over each area. I kind of like the white base too because it gives it sort of like this 3D effect. So that's also really nice. So when you are going over it, if you can, don't completely cover the white if you don't have to. But I kind of try to go slightly under it or slightly above it to maintain the white line. So there on that streak, I don't know if you can see, but I kind of went up right above it, just to give it some contrast. So we're just going to work through all of these. Okay, so now that all of my stitches are on, I'm doing a little bit of detailing to clean up what I did, if I made any mistakes. Kind of like what I did with the original lines, using that super tiny brush with the white paint. And I'm just trying to clean up some of the edges. So we are nearing the end of this makeup look. I'm going to do the lashes at the very end. I know I just showed them. I was going to do them first, but I decided to just move on to the lips because the sun is starting to set and I want to make sure I have light so I can show you guys as much as I can. So I am using this Pillow Talk lip liner and this NYX lip stain in Prague with a tiny lip brush. And that is going to be the base of my lip. I'm not putting too much product on because I wanted to have more of a stain feeling than actually having like a bunch of like lipstick on, because I do plan to wear this out tonight and actually have some drinks. So one thing that I like to do is create more of a couple layers of a stain. So once I have this all on my lips, I'll blot it with a paper towel and reapply. So just doing some thin layers really helps prolong your lip color for a night out. And I definitely recommend bringing this tube with you and this tiny lip brush and a little compact for any touch-ups you may need throughout the night. Okay, so here I'm just moving on to round 2 of the lips. I blotted my lips off a little bit, and yeah, just doing any sort of detail work. Using a brush is so handy because if you had a lip liner that matched this, your life would be a little easier, but I didn't have one that matched, so it's taking me a little bit more work to define my lips. Um, so yeah, just working on that. As I'm working on that, I do want to let you guys know that I did add some face paint to my arms. So you can kind of see that here. I did that off camera really quickly. So now that I have my lips done, I'm dipping into that sort of burgundy shadow from this eyeshadow palette that I have. And I want to make sure that all of this is set around the sides of my mouth because I don't want to have any issues later on with it bleeding or moving. So I'm just taking a little bit of that shadow and going around the outer parts of my lips just to kind of set what I just did. Okay, so I went ahead and applied lashes off camera, but these are the ones that I showed you guys earlier. This is the Kiss Lash in Icy. They're very spiky. They almost hit my eyebrows, which is perfect because if you look back at her pictures, her eyelashes are so big. So I was really happy with the effect of these lashes. So once they're on, I go back over my eyeliner And I just want to make sure that my lashes are blended in with my eyeliner. So, and if there's any area that's like poking up in a weird way, I'm just kind of trying to blend it all as best as I can so it's not obvious. I mean, obviously these aren't mine, but you know, just doing some blending. Once that is complete, we can move on to mascara. I didn't put mascara on prior. I love this. This is Fantasize by Patrick Starr. It is so dramatic, which is perfect. So I'm just blending my natural lash into the fake lash because my lashes are actually like a light brown, similar to my hair color. So I just want to blend them together. And then with whatever's left over, we're just going to kind of wiggle and stamp it onto your lower lash line. So I try not to grab extra product for this part. I kind of like to work with a slightly drier brush when it comes to my bottom lashes. And like I said, you're just going to press it, kind of wiggle it on the bottom and drag. So this completes the makeup look. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to finish getting dressed and put a wig on. If you like this video, please subscribe. Have a happy Halloween.